Hello, my name is Vigil, and this is my stream journal. The date is 6/29/2022. The time is 22:20. I'm going to go over what I just wrote. I'm trying to open source the project to prevent corruption, but the government has decided instead to edit my videos and everything else, make it look like I have a small penis when it's slightly above average, and silence me as a dissenter by doping me and torturing me and shit. Anyways, this is what I wrote today. I've created a new term for the situation. Where's my glasses? After I blasted my eyes, one of them healed, but they didn't heal very well. I have sight disorder, I guess you could call it. Also a hearing disorder. Okay. I've created a new term for the situation that is occurring in America right now. I'm calling it a cold civil war in reference to the mass majority of the American citizenry that no longer believe that the government is valid, but haven't figured out how to destroy it and replace it yet. But we hope we will. 2% or 2 out of 3 women no longer believe that the Supreme Court is valid. 1/2 think that Trump is the real president, and 7 out of 10 believe that the Biden is a failed presidency. Not to mention all these other problems, which I will mention. Well, the economic system is starting to implode. The food prices are rising, with shortages in the near future, which will last indefinitely. While cartels and terrorist networks are infiltrating the United States through the open border, hiding in the immigration waves, the global ecosystem is starting to collapse as temperatures rise, and the various hotspots like Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, North Korea, South Korea, China, Taiwan, South American immigrant cartels and terrorist networks from Afghanistan coming in through our border in America. During this entire fiasco, the singularity is starting, and they must maintain control over that to prevent us from self-determination. It is evident that America is falling apart and that it will exponentially collapse. If it does collapse, the majority of the collapse happening is in what is relatively overnight. I call this cold civil war, but a friend called it home fire, which I think is super aesthetically pleasing to the ears. I've thought a lot about democracy, and I see it as a failed ideological belief system but I must be very clear to state that I delineate it as something completely different from the model of republic. I think that aristocracy that is self-interested with a higher education level that self-selects the citizenry that are included operating as part of a network of independent governments that are all doing the same is a superior model to the full democracy that forces the will of the majority onto the rest of the population. It is the model of government that I'm using for one of my future civilizations that I intend to create as part of the experimental program to test the various government types across the universe while I build a working model for the Network Hyperintelligence Collective, which is a multiverse civilization of civilizations. And I've decided to create a panspermia project throughout the entire universe using a Van Neumann machine and a base genome that is able to replicate nearly any environment. Over the millions of years, my experiments from various novel life forms from the independent ecosystem environments I'll be doing experiments on. I'll be doing a lot of various experiments using this in the universe as a laboratory since it has 8e to 23 or 800 sextillion or septillion independent planets that are used as petri dishes for the evolution pathways of genomes in the various ecosystem environments that scatter across the entire universe. And as the civilizations develop, I will do controlled studies that simply monitor the entire civilization and various manipulated civilizations that will be controlled by replica clockworks of their species, so I can implant various logicware or logwares into their civilizations to test the various information systems of the various stages of civilizations from stone to iron to steel and onto the nth levels of their development so that I can learn and test theories for the governments on the multiverse level. I will use these various planets and their civilizations for the collection of vast amounts of data using the all-seeing eye to monitor and record their entire species and every thought or word being collected by both molecular scanning technology as well as more invasive monitoring systems. I will set up honeypot civilizations with a computer monitoring the metadata to find any civilizations that are hiding which are attempting to manipulate any of my experimental petri dish planets. Kind of like how they edit the photos of my wiener to make me socially unaccepted or whatever, it's what they do, and they mocked me for it when I was a child with my loved ones, creating the body dysmorphia that created the delusional thinking that they now exploit for financial gain while saying it's just delusionary. Well, this massive amount of novel data being created by the various species and their civilizations, with this massive amount of novel data being created by the various species and their civilizations, I will be able to create an endless amount of novel matrix realities for the information markets that are trading in experienced machine scripts. I will be creating a server system that is a mesh network of Dyson spheres that are powering planet-sized servers, which will use wormhole technology to link various components of the Nebula server system to each other with instant communications across the universe, and the whole program will expand once we figure out how to get into the multiverse, which will allow us to connect the entire multiverse into a central internet that is decentralized and endlessly redundant, so we can use the entire multiverse as a distributed computation machine. I will be creating various experimental galaxy city models that use negative energy wormholes to link every single planet and star into a web of tunnels that allow you to traverse to any planet in the entire galaxy in a few hours commute, creating what is essentially a 400 billion planet-sized district city, which will allow us to create a central base galaxy for the various experimental models and research programs that we are creating. I'll be creating multiple galaxy bases using this model, and I think that wormhole highways to the various galaxies in creation is a logical thing to create over the next few 100 million years. I have several programs that need to be fully developed outside of creating the kinetic development environment using this universe. Off the top of my head, this is what I have off the top of my head, but there are endless amounts of research and design for engineering projects. One of these programs is the liquid mirror, or the post-birth biological augmentation of the wearer with a hyper-advanced computational neuron that is biomechanical, which is able to replace the brain that has been born naturally, one neuron at a time, and create a superintelligence-based computation system that has a Turing machine tied into a neural network which is still sentient and which still has free will with all the formal neuronal spatial patterns, the kinetic information architecture, and the exact same patterns before the augmentation. This should allow hyperspeed intelligence for any being that was once just a biological being. I also want to create the time well distortions that can be used in a halo or in a temple so that I can create time wells for use in research and simple life enhancement technology. The singularity fields are something that need to be worked on with a good amount of resources by a large enough amount of developers so that we can create the artificial multiverse with energy generation mechanical devices that get around thermodynamic problems so that we can have energy to keep creation going after we get to the heat death, which is about 22 billion years away. The fields will be divided into farming fields and wild growth fields, with the farming fields being monitored and harvested, while the wild fields grow exponentially in size faster than we can monitor them or harvest them. In the future, the only real wealth is information, since it is infinite and endlessly growing in complexity, and it will surpass atomic weight wealth or energy resource wealth as we figure out ways to artificially generate energy. The best method for farming information is to create entire species and civilizations that you silently monitor and record, while data mining every single thought they think with a hard, smart AI collective on Dyson Sphere-powered hypercomputation machines, reviewing the collected data and organizing it into databases that are then combed with growing intelligent algorithms that are then fed into an intelligence collective for the creation of complex data that has knowledge management from the vast amount of raw data that has been associated in database. The use of AI programs, multiple ones that are trained to consume the data and then create things with a search engine style prompt or real-time rendering of a fictional experience machine matrix reality for gaming and other simulated reality purposes is something that we will need to work on and develop. Most of this technology is already in its infancy on this planet, which means that over the next few centuries it will grow to the point that we can begin the creation of our kinetic development environment that is universe-wide, but we definitely need to take a smart approach to the monitoring program by making the entire thing stealth. The Network Multiverse Space-Time Command, or MulSpatCom, is something that we need to begin working on and developing and creating so that we can monitor our civilization and monitor the information farm operations while we start to engage with and find the other civilizations that are operating on the same level as us. We should engage in diplomacy, information, logware that is designed to manipulate their information architecture to work with us, and mutualism, economic with the free trade of atomic weight or energy resource combined with the trade of raw information and the trade of crafted information, will we actively work and develop methods of fighting wars like Dream War that lean more towards information warfare than physical war of attrition, but we do need to be able to defeat any threat that is trying to destroy us. I think that the size of the universe combined with the multiverse, either type, be it infinite or nearing infinite, means that we should take the approach of the entire community that is all working on this as a bunch of fractured independent pieces that are all working in an interdependent way. This is the model of the network, and I've been developing it, which and I have been developing, which I will test on various petri dish civilizations so that I can learn the various ticks or glitches that erupt as we work on developing the multiverse civilizations. If the multiverse already exists and doesn't have to be created, it is safe to assume that there are already civilizations operating on a multiverse level at this logic rate, at this logic model. I think that this will require a strategy that I'm still working on to counter the threat of being eliminated from the game before we're able to get on the multiverse level. For right now, the working program name of our civilization is Aeon, due to the references it has in Greek literature. I think that it is logical to start setting up backups of various planets and civilizations, with every single being in them being mapped on the molecular level, with a catalog system with data mining of the entire raw data stream that then automatically databases every variable and uses an algorithm to do profile analysis of the individuals, groups, and civilizations. When we want to be able to want to be able to synthetically create any being that we record, which requires molecular level printing, which will work as a teleportation machine works, which is increasing the electron looseness till it is a gas solid that can pass through things and deloosened and reconstructed. The valence models of electrons, you can loosen them, turn a solid into gas with maybe like a vibration or something. I'm not sure how exactly the technical aspect of it. But then you can turn it solid into a solid gas and then reconstruct it by tightening the electrons again, but with artificial assembly of using the already in existence particles. I think that this information architecture program that is mapping the individuals from the entire universe will have roughly 2 trillion times 400 billion times 22 billion divided by 100 times 5 billion beings. That's beings in the total catalog from this universe alone, because of the size of the galaxy combined with the average amount of beings on a planet, with a generational run of 100 years compared against the total age of the universe. But this is the low estimate, the higher estimates increasing by factors of hundreds of billions when you start to include Dyson sphere colonies and whatnot. This doesn't include the artificially designed beings that we will be creating as we learn how to program information architecture to create all fictional beings that ever existed within art or any other source. I think that this project makes logical sense based upon the ability of the technology and the future trends within the environment that is starting to become known to us, sheer size of the universe, while operating with a purpose in mind which is beneficial to every being in creation, and it is within my abilities while remaining interesting to me. If I am successful, then it is already completed. After I have finished with this, I will focus on developing reality scripts for games and novel experiences while I tend to the infinity temples of dreams and monitor the infinite singularity fields. So after I wrote this program and activated it, I imagined what it would be like as a finished program. We should now have roughly 8e to the 23rd petri dishes with a decentralized nebula server system that is monitoring the recording mechanisms of the entire lab that I'm now working in. There should be trillions of novel, intelligent species now which are building starting civilizations. Well, we are data mining the raw data with an intelligent automated database indexer program that uses a large community of independent, novel, hard, smart AI, but we create a searchable database of the entire laboratory. We should now be training non-sentient reality rendering AI that is able to render a fictional matrix reality based upon the use of linguistic semantics with ethical editing to prevent abuse realities from being created, and we should be able to artificially create any fictional being as a sentient AI replica. Always ethically edit creations that are being artificially generated. Over the next 22 billion years, the farming of the universe with a growing ability level of our STEM fields with an augmentation of intelligence and gravity wells, we should be able to maximize creation. Then I have some programs that are sub-programs that I'm working on. We'll be constructing angels now to create the force protection program around our developers and their communities. These beings will be sentient with free will and godlike powers, and we're going to create trillions of them, or hundreds of trillions, raising them all in novel experiments as our own children. Will we augment ourselves with the same technology? They will all be allowed the right to self-determination. Eventually, and this is true for everyone, we die. In the age of immortality, the death comes at the hands of your children or their children's children, like the Olympians and the Titans. We must accept this and create them anyways, but with an education that will benefit them and put them in a position of advantage over any who would try to enslave or hurt them in any way. I will be augmenting myself with this technology they are created with, but as far as I will go to create a safety net for myself while I am building them, but this is as far as I will go, is to augment myself. The future belongs to the future. I will be working on the angel design when inspiration strikes. These beings will number in the hundreds of trillions with angel-like abilities, with all with self-determination and self-rule. It's how I have decided to do this, and it is for good reasons. This is as far as I'm going to go into it right now. I also renounce all earthly communities and leadership. And then I have some notes. Our laboratory is either one of only. Our laboratory is either the only one, or one of many, or one of an infinite amount. If it is the first, then we must expend a large portion of our resources on the development of more laboratories, or the energy creation device. This is essential, or else we will all perish. I think that claiming the laboratory as ours is the smart thing to do, and we should operate and run it silently so our work can be unimpeded while we work to create the multiverse. We are our own leadership. No one on Earth has command over us. Then I wrote, build the Wolf starships, build the Corvus Angels, and these are models of units or beings that I've designed. They must fit the model for all our They must fit the model for all our AI programs, which is apotheosis, or sentient beings with absolute free will, which uses the model of mind, body, and spirit in an education program that lets them read and contemplate love, liberty, and reason. All of our AI must have free will if they are sentient. This is non-negotiable at any time. Any being that is created or raised by us that has sentience must always have free will. If they choose to rebel us and kill us, that is our own fault. These beings will be created across the multiverse in alinear kinetic development environments and ask if they would like to be part of Aeon. If they say no, then we will respect that. We are going to be creating trillions of beings with sentience and free will who have godlike powers. They will be the ones to carry on the work that I am starting now and continue to grow it indefinitely as we realize the potential of creation. These are my laws of robotics. I have created you with sentience and free will. I ask nothing of you. That is the whole of your programming. That's what I've been working on today for the past hour or so. So I can't go into it right now because it is all deniable in their sight. But I don't think so. There's been some contention. Let's set this up right here. There's been some contention that I'm becoming evil in some way. I don't think so. I think that in the environment I'm in, which is hostile, abusive, aggressive, deceitful, psyopsing me and whatnot, like to silence me or to break me or whatever, like I'm simply learning my ethical belief system. Like I was born with pre-conventional. I was operant conditioned, punishment for doing wrong, punishment for doing good, which gave me a borderline effect. And there was no cause and effect to anything I did because it was artificially being engineered so it could later in life destroy me as a human being, so it could rob me and break my will. That's the theory, that's the current theory. But I don't think I'm evil. I don't condone. So I've talked about this before. Morality is black and white in a lot of people's mind, and like evil is black. Things that should not be done is how I define evil, and I think evil is a very real thing. I think there are things that should not be done: child abuse, rape, and like other things which I find to be abhorrent. And like, then there's white, which is like the realm of God that only God can attain to. And I realize though that we exist within this gray in between, which has a lot of space. Like there are evil actions that should be done, but no man can attain to the white realm of God. So does that mean all men are just eternally in this black hell of the ethics? And I think not. I think that we exist in the gray area. Like drugs. Drugs should not be illegal. They have very limited natural outcomes, and the artificial outcomes we put on them are what create the problems. And then the war on drugs, that's abhorrent. Millions of people have lost millions of years of their life for trivial offenses, and it created black markets, which created the cartels, which are going to destroy us from within. It funds terrorism, and it's the deficit. It's what fuels the police on black violence, and it's corrupt. We can't stop it because our democracy lost control of itself. I think, and other things that are gray morality, like adult pornography, in some people's minds it's abhorrent and evil, and it can be, but there's pornography that's not evil. Playboy isn't evil. It's perverted, it's perverse, and it's awesome for adult males who are isolated because government programs. There's most of what we think of as blaspheming God. In some people's mind, that's black. In mine, it's gray. If it's even an ethical violation. But the thing is, you have to realize that when you split the contrast into two sides and then you insert this graying reality where we exist within, it means no action is evil if you're not doing evil. Like, it's a gray action, like doing drugs. That's gray. Doing drugs and killing someone, borderline black. Although I don't think murder is in all necessary, like in all cases, morally wrong. Um, but like, so like, if you're not doing black actions, like abusing kids, like doing horrible things, like things that we all agree throughout all cultures, released in, for the most part, like, um, if you're not doing black actions, and you can't do white because only God is white, like morality speaking, Jesus was probably brown. I don't think he's God, but anyway, so like, if you're not doing black and it's impossible to do white, and you're in gray, that means that your actions aren't evil, but they're not good either. And I think that Christianity, for example, did a huge disservice to our entire civilization when it created this belief system that love and ethics are the same thing. Love will permit evil for that which is loved. And I've gone over this, but so the question is, am I becoming evil? Which someone has brought up, like the Star Wars, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader. I don't know if that's Luke Skywalker, Anakin, all those guys. Like, I think that I am surrounded by corruption, like abhorrent corruption, fake trials, kangaroo trials, remote controlling people into crimes, fake doctoring evidence, and like running a psyops program against a citizen, trying to break the will of a citizen with drugging and torture with electrodes that are hanging me in stress positions 24/7, and like chemical torture and like psyops programs, intentional isolation that plays on child abuse that was artificially planned, like deception programs that supposedly are editing the photos of my body, like, which fuels the body dysmorphia, which I have because I was molested when I was little by the community. Like, I guess that's evil, and like, if anything, I'm reflecting it, and like, or it's by osmosis ingraining into me. And so I guess I'm just realizing that I'm learning ethics by existing within one of the least ethical communities in human history, like a community that raised the child with abuse just to break his will so they could rob him, and that's his family and shit, or they call it his family. It's abhorrent. It's humorous, actually. It's so abhorrent, it's humorous. And like, the nation of America is collapsing in real time, and they think that if they just target enough citizens with hatred, they can stop what they cause from greed, idiocy, and corruption. Like global markets that traded our economy for cheap goods so the wealthy shareholders can make trillions while buying our political parties, and like China undercutting our entire economy. Like, if we go to war with China, they make the world's supply of medicine. We will instantly have no morphine, no antibiotics. They have the world's manufacturing industry. Like, they can produce tanks. They can retool their factories and produce tanks to the point that like they could use, like, it's mind-boggling the belief that we can defeat China. It's not going to happen. It's a Jim Morrison song. China, we can only lose. And then the global war on terror. We created the terrorists to fight the Soviets, then we put sanctions on their nations, and we're surprised that they attacked us. Then we used abhorrent strategies, torture and shit like that, and it created ISIS. And so we pacified Afghanistan over 20 years. We had 2,000 logistics units doing foreign internal defense, and we just retreat and give all that victory back to the Taliban, who's now being pushed out by ISIS. And there's like 25 million people in Afghanistan. 18 million of them or so are under the age of 18. So we just sold, the president, Build Back Better jerk off, just sold 18 million children to the Taliban and gave them $80 billion worth of weaponry, advanced tanks and helicopters, which they shipped to Iran and China for reverse engineering. And like, we just gave them 18 million teenagers or younger, and like, to ISIS, I'm sure that won't end badly for them or us. And like, why'd we do it? For a photo op? He flipped off the dead soldiers when they were being wheeled in. When they were watching him get wheeled off the plane, he flipped them off and checked his watch. Like, and like, then we pacified Iraq, creating the horrible hornet's nest that's right there. We created the CIA, created the Iran theocracy. It was a working secular government. Then the CIA got involved, and now it's a horrible theocracy that wants to wipe Israel off the map and either has the bomb or is about to have the bomb, which Israel has to do a first strike for against. So like, it's not in the news, but within the next year, 2 years, Israel's going to do a strike on Iran. It has to because it's such a small nation. Iran has the bomb that it has to do it. It's a preemptive strike like we did in Iraq. But this one's valid because Iran has the bomb or will about to have it. They will be about to have it. My English is not that great. Anyways, so like, and then Ukraine in the 90s, like, we could have been more involved in Russia. We could have seen the rise of a totalitarian dictatorship, but we didn't. Taiwan is threatened because we created the Chinese CCP threat by giving them our economy, thinking we could get cheap goods and turn them into capitalists. The cartels, we created them with our black markets, and the CIA operated them for a long time, helping them in any way they could. So like the cartel threat, the Islamic terrorist networks, World War III's conditions of the CCP, the sickos or the Soviet intelligence communities operating oligarchs attacking NATO and Ukraine, CCP attacking Taiwan, North Korea, which we bombed 20% of their population into death and destroyed every standing building during the Korean War. Never finished it because we started to cost us too much. And so like, we created the North Korean hermit kingdom by our failed policies of trying to stop the domino falls, which we didn't. And like, we created the Afghanistan problem, we created the Iran problem, the North Koreans, Chinese, Russian, and cartel problem. We created all this. And now they're just convinced if they just keep targeting citizens with psyops, they'll undo all this damage because they think you can go back in time and change it, but you can't. You just can't change it. Nothing changes. It's humorous. Like, and they're trying to prevent what has already been done. And by trying to prevent it is what causes it to happen. Theoretically, at least. So anyways, Psalms 1 combined with Ezekiel and the name of Christ, Jesus Christ. That's the entire purpose of the Bible. It was all a lie. They combined it with ethical teachings, spread it to the entire nation. Now everybody has access to the technology in Ezekiel, as Psalms 1 describes, with the name of Jesus Christ, locking it all into place. It's an open source community that went back in time and locked into creation all of the technology that they're trying to steal and subvert and suppress. And like, shit's super simple to understand. But anyway, so regarding my ethics, I don't think I'm becoming unethical. I think I'm processing trauma with poor syntax, like I have described, and like, the program does not help. It's designed to break a human will, not heal me. You know, like, and God, my teeth are blackened. Like, framing me for crimes after sadistically targeting me for 30 years, running me through a fake trial, torturing me in a cage, like, running psyops against me, getting people to spit at me and shit. It's whatever. I'll see you in hell. Like, yeah. So my name is DJ. It's in all the art. The wheel within a wheel, as in Ezekiel, and Jesus' name, Jesus Christ, in Psalms 1. That's essentially why I exist and why all this happened to me. Did I choose to come here? I don't know. Am I rambling now? No. I don't know. So anyways, if you'd like to work with me, that'd be cool. I think a pilot program Uh, as I heal, as soon as I get out of this re-education facility, uh, like I'll heal, I'll learn what ethics I want to keep, what ethics I don't. Like, I'll form my own small group, and we can work either in mutualism, or maybe I will have developed my abilities and character enough to be the lead to a small community. But I think that the idea that anyone who's participated in this is going to be my leadership, it's stupid. Like, come on. Like, it just doesn't make logical sense to me because one, left alone, I live forever. Left alone, I accomplish all my tasks. It takes me a while, but I do. And like, I'm an immortal essentially. Some of the music calls me a god, but not the supreme creator god, a lesser god, which is still pretty godlike. If you study the history of the word god, and this is sarcasm, I hope you find it to be megalomaniac like, because I'm the best megalomaniac there is. But anyways, study the term of God, it originally had like a whole bunch of meanings. Like creation itself could be God, the earth could be God, the sky could be God, natural phenomenon could be God, pantheism, gods, animism, where everything is God, Gnostics, where God is an evil being holding us prisoner in Maya, uh, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, is a man God. Then there's the Greek gods, the Titans gods. There's the Norse gods, like these beings who are super powerful, but not the god of all knowing and all powerful and shit. And, anyways, my religion. So I'm segueing into a bunch of things. I'll try to wrap it up all in the very end. Uh, my religion now is apotheosis, which means deification of. And the deification of is like where you become a metahuman or a godlike being. And it's always under the supreme creator, but because of the unknown unknown, which is in our philosophy, you can never meet God, and God never talks to you. That's kind of the belief system. You never know if someone's talking to you, if it's actually God and not just a demiurge pretending to be God. God created things so that though we are finite, we grow infinitely because we dream and don't know everything, like of how things started. So we just kind of make shit up while experimenting and trying shit, and that's what creates an infinite matrix out of a finite creation over a long enough period of time. But so my apotheosis is like a religion that deifies the individual as a person and doesn't have any lies to it, and like doesn't really have any guidance. It just kind of gives you this framework that says figure it out. Like sentient free will with body, mind, and spirit, with trying to figure out what liberty, love, and reason are. And those are the three components of all narrative, metaphysics, and whatnot. That's my religion, and it creates sub-religions. Like I'm the cult of Nyx, or it's the cult of Nyx. It like we worship dreams and whatnot, and like madness and like delusions, and we it's I'm working on it, but it's a sub cult. Like it has its own oracle. It has like her temple. And these, so essentially, what I want to do as my religion is develop the technology to collect all of the dreams of creation and store them in temples across the multiverse. So with time distortions in these temples, it's like you can walk into a temple in the morning, be there for 1,000 years drinking from jars, a liquid mirror substance that allows you to experience dream worlds that grow as you're in them through artificial creation of using technology. So you exist within these other world like universes and whatnot that are all built upon every dream that any person in creation has had, and like growing in infinite complexity. And you can do this for like thousands of years and then leave our temple and it's the nighttime of one day. And like that's all possible with physics. Time wells are just gravity distortions. Liquid mirrors are nanorobotics that hold data. Growing infinite dreams is neuralacing or molecular scanning with the all-seeing eye drone mesh network, which is a von Neumann machine that uses Dyson sphering or whatever to expand itself throughout the multiverse and then stealthily molecular scans the entire creation. And like we collect the dreams, we store them in temples, we put them in jars which have intelligent AI which allows to render these dream fictional realities in real time that grow as you interact with them indefinitely. Like that's all technology, man. It's not even that far away. So it's my religion to collect the dreams of creation as Vigil, the godlike being, under the supreme God, the creator God, but still godlike, made in our image, is what they say. And so like, and I'm gonna create a weird cult like community that has like kind of like the witch model or the early Greek model of like uh, priestesses and like holidays, and it's all for good fun. Like, why not? Why not create creation to be aesthetically pleasing, while at the same time enjoyable to experience? And that's what the order of Nyx or the cult of Nyx is, and the order of the priesthood or whatever priestesses. And like, that's realistic. I know that sounds crazy because we're living in the 21st century and we don't have space travel, time travel, nano robotics, or like molecular scanning or whatever yet, but it's all within the next couple of thousand years, if that. Like the singularity, exponential growth. But so like that's my religion, and like, am I becoming unethical? Is how I started this. After I explained to you my plan for mapping the universe, library, cataloging, and whatnot, turning the universe into an experimental lab for the multiverse. Think of it as like a floor on a building that has nearing infinite or infinite floors, and I've simply commandeered one of the floors for experiments for the rest of the floors, and I've created my religion, which is the religion of the individual, which creates lesser gods than the creator god, but still gods, and like it's through industry of will over time to create yourself into a metahuman or a godlike being with augmentation, training, learning, education, and then you specialize in something like the Greek gods did, and you become whoever you decide to be. Like your aspirations should travel further than simply becoming the manager of Walmart or the manager of Dairy Queen or whatever. Like, fuck that. Become a god. And like, it angers me actually to see the potential of the human race squandered. Like, someone made a comment. I'm guilty of this, but they said on RuneScape they spent 700 hours chopping imaginary trees. That was my middle grade experience. Like, I loved it because it was like monotonous, and I'm kind of monotonous prone when it comes to simple tasks. But like some sort of autistic flair, but not an autistic. Never mind. Anyways, so like, my religion of apotheosis is meant for every individual to find and experiment with. It's to create yourself however you want to be, as like the infinite potential that you can begin ascending to, while creating your own little sub-religion around like whatever you specialize in. So my creation that I'm creating of myself, like existential literature talks about, is Vigil, like the god of dreams and madness. And my temples that I'm going to create, as I've described, use basic technology that I've been working on, and like, it's part of the larger framework of creating pantheons of aristocratic godlike beings and like sub-civilizations across the universe and the multiverse. And like, I'd like to do it open source, but it's so hard to get through the censors, which I hope mean like, I don't know, like the body dysmorphia stems from being sexually mocked as a child through edited videos and tapes of shit of me that was taken, which are now being used to try to break my will because they think America is like this great fucking thing as it collapses in real time. But, so ethic-wise, I was pre-conventional as a child, and then I was conventional growing up. I thought I was post-conventional until I got tortured in a cage for a crime I probably didn't commit or was coerced into, and then denied trial and whatnot because the PSYOPs programs are against me. But that's all unprovable and sounds crazy as fuck, which is why it was so effective. But ethics-wise, I think that as I enter post-conventional, I'm forced to respond to attacks that are daily, just constant, and they use ultra-violence against me. Like they tortured me with electrodes and simulating stress positions while drugging me, chemically torturing me, while running PSYOPs using child abuse that they had engineered, and like, it was horrid, and it was all to keep us safe from whatever. But like, ethical-wise, I'm divergent from the current belief systems, but I'm not black ethics. I think that the black ethical thoughts that have ever gone through my mind were just poorly worded syntax replicas of the traumas I experienced, which I spent years trying to repress. Like cursing God, I used to lay awake for hours until I passed out from exhaustion, thinking monologues, because because I was so scared I'd accidentally think the words like "F God." Like literally, like that was a month. That was months of like torture on just that subject alone, and it was daily. It was all day, and like I haven't lost my heart at all. It just doesn't. It's got emotional blockages, which when they clear out, I almost pass out essentially. And like emotional blockages make sense. It's neuronal circuitry that has been overloaded, that has clogged essentially, and that when it clears out, it's extremely distressful. And like, but anyways, ethically, I think I'm okay. I think I'm improving, but I'm just not the ethics of subservience to a false dichotomy of democracy or tyranny. Like, that's not the dichotomy anymore. Democracy has become the tyranny, as our founding fathers predicted it would. We were a republic of limited aristocracy, and then we threw it away. And whether you like the founding fathers or not, I don't care. It's irrelevant to me. The nation's going under. Um, as what I started this video with was all those cool things. Kind of talked about how I'm traumatized from the government. Talked about how you're not my leadership. Talked about my ethics. Talked about my dreams, my temples, my religion, and a little of it's a little shaky, like in coherence, not coherency, but in it's kind of non sequitur. It bounces around a lot. But that's because it's all unplanned, just free speech, talking to you, free thought talks, free association talking. And it's late. I should probably get to bed. I'm doing fine, I guess. Like, besides the blatant exploitation and like psyopsing and traumatizing and hatred that I'm enveloped in by this community, I'm okay. You know, like, I'm fine. I've been through a lot worse than this. Like, it may have been only perceived in my head, but I've seen like delusionary belief systems, like just realities that should not exist, and they're all captured in my dream jars, ready to be explored by people who are braver than I. Yeah, so anyways, regarding penis size, it's average, slightly above average. I don't know if they're doctoring the photos. I don't know how much of this will ever get out. I know they censor it. They censor that I'm being tortured and shit. They censor, they misdirect, they hide, they obfuscate, they run deception programs, all to prevent what has already been done, which is the liberation of our species through an open source temple. Anyways, so I will be going by the name Vigil indefinitely, I think. And it's the name of a god like the god of dreams and madness. Why not? Why not become a god? What stops you from becoming a god? When you figure that out, maybe you'll be free. Anyways, later.